I get asked about the humanities all the time, as you can imagine. What I like to talk about is not so much the academic disciplines that come together to compose the humanities, philosophy and history and archaeology and anthropology, all of those things. I like to talk about what they're about, all those things are about. And of course, it begins with our experience, either individual or collective experience. But it also has to do principally with the domains of our experience that are basically the most important to us as individuals and as members of a society. The domain of culture, the domain of our history, the ideas that inflect our experience and shape our experience, and the values that we bring to living lives as individuals and with one another. In most ways, and most of the time, the humanities are about those things. They're about culture, they're about history, they're about values and ideas. So those are the dimensions of our experience which are most often at issue in the humanities. And I think if we talk about it that way, if we talk about experience and if we talk about those dimensions of experience, the humanities become a little less mysterious, right? Because we're always engaged in ideas, we're always engaged in values. We all have cultures, sometimes several cultures, and we all have a history. And indeed, history is always with us in one way or another. So for me, that's been a more effective and meaningful way to talk about what we do at NEH and what happens in the state councils as well. My view of both secondary and higher education is that we have lost sight of the ambition of educating the whole person. We have allowed a very highly specialized and technical vision of education to intercede. And I think that's been a huge mistake. I think it weakens our educational institutions. I think it results in a poorer experience for students. And I think our preoccupation both with the technical disciplines and with the vocational significance of education has blinded us to the broader purposes of education in general, which includes, for me, a very significant exposure to the humanities as well as the sciences and technology, and which has to speak back to the lives that our students are actually going to live. And of course, they're going to live whole lives. They're not going to live partial lives. They're not going to live only in the economy. I spent a year in Vietnam in 1969, 68, 69, and I came back with a lot of pretty significant questions and concerns about my experience there. And I had the great fortune to find at college, when I returned to college, a faculty member at my alma mater, Colorado College, Glenn Gray, a philosopher who had written a beautiful book on his own reflections on his experience during World War II. And that book changed my life in a very significant way. It introduced me to philosophy, but it also introduced me to a way of thinking about the world and my own experience that really never left me. So it was a very intensely personal kind of connection to philosophy that got me going in the humanities. And I think as my education proceeded at that point, I found more and more ways in which my own experience was illuminated by different forms of understanding in the humanities. And as I looked at the world around me, I saw the same thing. So for me, it's really been a question of how experience, and my experience in particular, is illuminated by the forms of understanding that humanists explore and express and represent. And that continues to be the case today.